Female CEO appears at a single dad's house and says, "I've come to claim what I owed 20 years ago." The rain had been falling since morning, and Marcus Webb was used to that kind of day. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? He stood at the kitchen counter making sandwiches for his two kids, 9-year-old Lily and 12-year-old Daniel, his movements slow and tired in the way that only single fathers understand. He had worked the early shift at the warehouse, come home to help Daniel with a science project, and still managed to cook dinner from scratch, because he refused to let his children grow up eating nothing but frozen meals. Life was not easy, but Marcus had made a quiet peace with hard. What he had not made peace with was the knock that came at his front door at 6:47 that evening. Precise and confident, like someone who did not knock on doors out of habit but out of decision. He dried his hands on a dish towel and opened the door, to find a woman standing in the rain, wearing a coat that probably cost more than his monthly rent. She was in her early 40s, with sharp eyes and an expression that held something complicated behind it. Something between resolve and nervousness that she was working hard to hide. She looked at him for a moment and then said, "Marcus Webb?" He nodded slowly. She straightened slightly and said, "My name is Claire Donovan. I've come to claim what I owed you 20 years ago." Marcus stared at her. The name hit him somewhere deep, like a stone dropped into still water. Claire Donovan. He had not heard that name in 2 decades, but he had thought about her more times than he would ever admit out loud. He stepped back and let her in because the rain was heavy, and because something in her eyes told him this was not a conversation for a doorstep. She sat at his kitchen table, and he sat across from her, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then she reached into her bag and placed a folded piece of paper on the table between them. 20 years ago, she began, her voice steady but careful. "I was 19 years old and my mother was sick and I had no money and no plan, and I was standing outside a convenience store in the middle of winter with a flat tire and a dead phone." Marcus remembered. He remembered it with a clarity that surprised him even now. He had been 21, driving home from a night class he could barely afford, when he spotted her in the parking lot looking utterly lost. He had changed her tire in the freezing cold, driven her to the nearest payphone, given her the last $40 in his wallet so she could buy her mother's medication that night, and refused to take her number because he could see she was overwhelmed, and he did not want her to feel obligated. He had driven away without a last name, without a phone number, without anything. He had simply done what felt right and gone home. "I never forgot you," Claire said. "I looked for you for years, but I only knew your first name and what you looked like." She paused. 2 months ago, I was giving a speech at a community event, and someone in the audience recognized your name from a story you told about that night. Her mutual connection reached out to me." Marcus looked at the folded paper between them. "Claire," he said quietly, "I didn't do that to be repaid." She shook her head firmly. "I know that." "That's exactly why I have to." She unfolded the paper and slid it toward him. It was a check. His eyes went to the number and his breath caught. It was not $40. It was not even $400. It was an amount that would clear every debt he had, put his kids through college, and let him breathe for the first time in what felt like forever. "That's too much," he said immediately. Claire shook her head again. "My mother lived for 11 more years because she got that medication on time that night. She was there when I graduated college, when I started my first company, when I gave my first big speech. Everything I built partly because she was still there to believe in me." Her voice broke just slightly at the edges. "You gave me 11 more years with my mother, Marcus. There is no number that covers that." He sat with that for a long moment. Lily wandered into the kitchen then, still in her school uniform, rubbing her eye and looking at the stranger at the table with curious, unafraid eyes the way only children can. "Dad," she said, "who is this?" Marcus looked at his daughter, then at Claire, then back at the check on the table. He thought about his own mother, who had passed 3 years ago, and how he would have given anything for 11 more years with her. He thought about every night. He had stayed up worrying about money, and tried not to let the kids see the worry on his face. He thought about that cold parking lot 20 years ago and how it had taken him. Maybe 40 minutes and $40, and he had gone home and never thought of it as anything remarkable at all. He reached across the table and folded the check back up. "I'll accept it," he said softly, "on one condition. You stay for dinner." Claire Donovan, CEO of a company with her name on 3 buildings, looked at the sandwich-covered counter and the little girl in the school uniform and the tired, decent man across from her, and for the first time in a long time, she smiled like she meant it completely. "I'd like that very much," she said. And outside, without anyone quite noticing, the rain had stopped. If this story touched your heart, please show your love and support by giving a thumbs up, sharing it with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribing to our channel, Kindness True Stories, where every story is a reminder that one small act of goodness can change everything. Your support means the world to us.